You know those wagers that often politicians enter into around sporting events where the losing person will wear the jersey of the rival team? Are you the kind of fan who, when you hear that, you understand what kind of pain you would endure if you were forced to wear the jersey and the colors of your rival? Or are you the type of person who says, what an easy bet to take because that's just simple and foolish? Well, if you're the former, you might appreciate the analogy used today to talk about allegiance. What does it mean to be devoted, to be loyal, to show allegiance? And can it be changed? Do they come into conflict? Well, the answer to that is yes. And so we're going to go on that journey between the conflicting allegiances to find our way into the message for today, the message we will find along the Marginal Way.
Come in and breathe. Come in and just be. Breathe. Breathe. If you need to pray, if you need to weep, wherever you are, whatever you need, come in and just be. Come in and just breathe.
Bunjokwa, Sewara Hunzios, Gotnigari Wessa, Dano de Tino Horado, Ne Aguego Gossat Stan Sarawana Sa Oyera. Aguego Oscar Anti the Wahwet Nuni, Ne Ungwatnigura, Dano de Tino Horado, Ne Ungwasum A, Tukadinayota, Ne Ungwatnigura. Aguego Oscar Anti the Wahwet Nuni, Ne Ungwatnigura, Dano de Tino Horado, Ne Yetinistaha Uhundra. Tukadinayota ne Ungwatnigura. Aguego Oscar Anti the Wahwet Nuni ne Ungwatnigura, Dano de Tinu Horado, Tigahnigarunio, Tukadinayota ne Ungwatnigura. Aguego Oscar Anti the Wahwet Nuni ne Ungwatnigura, Dano de Tinu Horado, ne Gunjok Sum'a, Tukadinayota ne Ungwatnigura. Aguego Oscar Anti the Wahwet Nuni ne Ungwatnigura, Dano de Tinu Horado, ne Odera Sum'a, Tukadinayota ne Ungwatnigura. Aguego Oscar Anti the Wahwet Nuni ne Ungwatnigura, Dano de Tinu Horado, ne Ohande Sum'a, Tukadinayota ne Ungwatnigura. Aguego Oscar Anti the Wahwet Nuni ne Ungwatnigura, Dano de Tinu Horado, ne Odinuma Sum'a, Tukadinayota ne Ungwatnigura. Aguego Oscar Anti the Wahwet Nuni ne Ungwatnigura, Dano de Tinu Horado, ne Gahit Sum'a, Tukadinayota ne Ungwatnigura. Agwego aska anti de wahwet nuni ne ungwa ni gura dano de tinu horado ne ununkwa sum'a tukari nayota ne ungwa ni gura. Agwego aska anti de wahwet nuni ne ungwa ni gura dano de tinu horado ne jun hekwa tukari nayota ne ungwa ni gura. Agwego aska anti de wahwet nuni ne ungwa ni gura dano de tinu horado ne gunderio tukari nayota ne ungwa ni gura. Agwego aska anti de wahwet nuni ne ungwa ni gura dano de tinu horado ne garunda sum'a dano overe sum'a tukari nayota ne ungwa ni gura. Agwego aska anti de wahwet nuni ne ungwa ni gura dano de tinu horado ne oji da ogu'a tukari nayota ne ungwa ni gura. Agwego aska anti de wahwet nuni ne ungwa ni gura dano de tinu horado ne gaieri ni gawarage e tukari nayota ne ungwa ni gura. Agwego aska anti de wahwet nuni ne ungwa ni gura dano de tinu horado ne eti sotogu radiweras tukari nayota ne ungwa ni gura. Agwego aska anti de wahwet nuni ne ungwa ni gura dano de chi de wat nu horado ne eti de wat ji a jokaneka garakwa tukari nayota ne ungwa ni gura. Agwego aska anti de wahwet nuni ne ungwa ni gura dano de tinu horado ne eti sota asontaneka garakwa tukari nayota ne ungwa ni gura. Agwego aska anti de wahwet nuni ne ungwa ni gura dano de tinu horado ne yojista korunyo tukari nayota ne ungwa ni gura. Agwego aska anti de wahwet nuni ne ungwa ni gura dano de chi de wat nu horado ne sungwaya dizu tukari nayota ne ungwa ni gura. Ona tohni ore, wakaderi wat kwani, doga o tana zunget ni gorha, izagit ne aiza wara sundurum. Tukari nayota ne ungwa ni gura. Tok ni gawanage.
Mother Earth, Father Sun, Moon and stars, we all are one. We are all connected, we are all connected.
A sheaf of sweetgrass, bound at the end and divided into thirds, is ready to braid. In braiding sweetgrass, so that it is smooth, glossy, and worthy of the gift, a certain amount of tension is needed. Of course, you can't do it yourself by tying one end to a chair, or by holding it in your teeth and braiding backward away from yourself. But the sweetest way is to have someone else hold the end so that you can pull gently against each other, all the while leaning in, head to head, chatting and laughing, watching each other's hands, one holding steady while the other shifts the slim bundles over one another, each in its turn. Linked by sweetgrass, there is reciprocity between you. Linked by sweetgrass, the holder as vital as the braider. This will be our metaphor. Braiding sweetgrass is an intertwining of science, spirit, and story. Old stories and new ones that can be medicine for our broken relationship with Earth. A pharmacopoeia of healing stories that allow us to imagine a different relationship in which people and land are good medicine for each other. Will you hold the end of the bundle while I braid? Hands joined by grass. Can we bend our heads together and make a braid to honor the earth? And then I'll hold it for you while you braid too.
Boys and girls, old and young, all Earth's creatures live as one. We are all connected, we are all connected.
When Nanabozho, the Anishinaabe original man, our teacher, part man, part manido, walked through the world, he took note of who was flourishing and who was not, of who was mindful of the original instructions and who was not. He was dismayed when he came upon villages where the gardens were not being tended, where the fish nets were not repaired, and the children were not being taught the way to live. Instead of seeing piles of firewood and caches of corn, he found the people lying beneath maple trees with their mouths wide open, catching the thick, sweet syrup of the generous trees. They had become lazy and took for granted the gifts of the Creator. They did not do their ceremonies or care for one another. He knew his responsibility, so he went to the river and dipped up many buckets of water. He poured the water straight into the maple trees to dilute the syrup. Today, maple sap flows like a stream of water with only a trace of sweetness to remind the people both of possibility and of responsibility. And so it is that it takes 40 gallons of sap to make a gallon of syrup.
The giver of life has set us free from the dark ruler of this world. He has brought us safely onto his good road to walk it together with Creator's much-loved Son. He is the one who paid a great price to release us from our bad hearts and broken ways. He is the visible representation of our invisible Creator. All that the Father has belongs to this Son. He existed before creation and is above all created things. For it was in him that all things in the spirit world above and on the earth below were created, all things seen and unseen. Yes, even governments, rulers, powers, and authorities were all created by him and for him.
The year before I was born, the Pittsburgh Pirates won the World Series. I grew up in Pennsylvania, so I grew up a Pirates fan. And, a little closer. And they didn't do a whole lot of winning when I was a kid. But I was loyal and faithful, because that's what you do, right? It paid off, because in 1971, they won the World Series. And it was a little choppy for a few years, but the wait was only 8 years until they won it again. And then I moved. And I moved to the land of the curse before it was reversed. I learned what it was like to wait. I hadn't waited nearly as long as folks here had, right? But during that time, too, I then had to decide who was I going to cheer for. I was in an American League city. Having been a fan of the National League, I wasn't able really to follow the Pirates all that much. This was not in the day of streaming and, pay-per-view. So I was losing connection with my allegiance of my youth, and I was losing interest in baseball, too. I kind of like what's happening now. It doesn't take you a day and a half to watch a game. So, maybe I'll get back into it. I don't know. But I did become a cultural Red Sox fan because, you got to have the hats. You gotta know the sit go sign and all that. You gotta go sit in the bleachers at Fenway, which I did, and so it was like I was part of the tribe, I would say. But having moved to Cleveland, that's where there was a tribe anyway. But that's a different story. But I realized that my allegiance could switch. That my original allegiance really was about family. It was about my love of my grandmother, because we would listen to the games together. We would watch the games together. I was surrounded by Pirates fans growing up, so it was about the group, the community. And so that was what I was able to switch, because I was in a new community, which I did want to embrace. I wanted to become a New Englander. I know I'm from away, but I tried, I'm doing my best to be a part of this. And then 1994, the World Cup rolled around. And all of a sudden, I was introduced to the beauty of the beautiful game. of soccer. And I was hooked. I became an addict. There was no doubt about it. And so when the New England Revolution started in 1996, I was a fan before they kicked the ball. Right? I was ready. And I've been going to matches at Foxborough, probably about half the home games for most of the time that I could get there. And I have learned about the new curse. I don't know what the curse is, but we are cursed. We are the Buffalo Bills of the Major League Soccer, having been to the final 5 times and not won it yet. The worst, of course, was when I was there and watched Kobe Jones score in front of me and take the cup home to Los Angeles. But in any case, I'm not bitter. Yes, I am. But that allegiance was tested when I moved again to Ohio. And there, I had the opportunity, but not much of one, to be a Columbus Crew fan, which I could never stomach the idea of being, right? It's not my team. Wait, I'm a hardcore fan. I go down there and I lose my voice. You all can be grateful that I don't go to Saturday games and get home at 2 in the morning with no voice. Or maybe you wish I would some Sundays, I don't know. But that's what I would be doing. So I don't get to as many matches now because of that. But in the fort, which is what we call us crazies behind the north goal, one of the chants that we sing is New England till I die. New England till I die. I know I am, I'm sure I am, New England till I die. And yes, I know I'm from away, but I am New England till I die. And so in Columbus, I would go just to see my team play. And there we go. I got to see them beat Columbus and move on to the finals of the MLS Cup, which they, of course, lost. But that was 10 years ago, and we're still waiting. So I know about allegiance and loyalty. And I know that we can have multiple allegiances. And I know that our allegiances can change. Because I'm still sort of a Pirates fan and sort of a Red Sox fan, because it sort of doesn't matter. But I'm not a Yankees fan. I'm not. I understand there are rules here, And when it comes to the New England Revolution, I will never be swayed. I will be a Revolution fan until the day I die. When I hope, of course, that there will be 6 Revolution players as my pallbearers, so they can let me down one last time. But it was all a setup for that joke. Are you glad you waited? Yeah, no. The truth is, allegiances really are a matter of priority, because we do have multiple allegiances. And some are more central, some are more important than others. And sometimes they come into conflict, and we have to make decisions about what allegiance, what loyalty will win the day for us. The Pledge of Allegiance, I think, is one of those challenges. If you think about it, it's a lesser allegiance than what we're truly called to. Now, that sounds like sacrilege, doesn't it? Because of how patriots will say, no, it is, you have to love this flag. You realize we're one of the very few nations, maybe the only one, that has such a high regard for its flag. And of course, we're so hypocritical because look how we treat it. But people will get all upset if you don't respect it. You don't sing the national anthem, you kneel, or you show some sign of protest during it, because we pledge allegiance to a flag. Oh, and to the republic for which it stands. I mean, just pull that apart for a minute. The challenge of that allegiance is that you are going to place these things above other allegiances, other loyalties that clearly are more important. Your family, your community. Aren't all of us really more committed to our communities, those who are around us, more than those who are far away in other states and in the nation? So the Pledge of Allegiance is a way to try to bring us into an understanding that this is a valuable allegiance that should bump up on the priority list, especially when it's challenged. But what should our ultimate and primary allegiance be? What should we be committed to before all else? What would trump an allegiance to a flag, or even an allegiance to the republic for which it stands? Do those things exist for us? I would argue that an allegiance to the peace of all of humanity, an allegiance to the care of all of creation is a more primary, more important allegiance than the one to the nation. Not that we shouldn't have it, but it's more like concentric circles. How wide can you extend your loyalty, your devotion? How far can your attention and care go? And frankly, that's a spiritual message. That's a message that we hear ourselves challenged about in Scripture regularly. Love your neighbor as yourself. Oh, and love even your enemy. If we're going to take seriously our loyalty and devotion to the teaching of our faith and to Christ who taught us, then we need to love our enemy. It's kind of hard to have an exclusive loyalty and allegiance to your own nation and still love your enemy, isn't it? You can see why Jesus got in trouble with the authorities of his day, because he's challenging us to do something that is difficult and hard and runs counter to what others would have us do. The scripture we read today reminds us that all governments and leaders are vying for this allegiance of us, but they exist only because there is a greater power. They were created by Christ for Christ. They're created by God, and God's representative on earth understands that these are all lesser than our allegiance and our love of God. And the early Christians understood that sometimes being a good Christian meant being a bad Roman. That sometimes you have to do something that isn't the expectation or even allowed by the authorities and rulers around you, because love is a higher calling. And when evil surrounds you, you have to stand up for love. And it's a message that we should take to heart today. Where are the challenges for us to be good Christians in a nation that isn't always Christ-like? The truest measure of allegiance is in the fruit. How do you spend your time, your talent, your treasure? If people look at you and measure you by the activities of your life, where will they say your allegiance lies? What are the things that you spend your time doing? Obviously, some people's allegiance is to making as much money as they can. Some people's allegiance is to making sure that their people and the people like them are the ones who are protected. And then there should be those of us who are known by the love that we show. We challenge ourselves weekly with the words of our mission statement. And the question is, when we say that we will use who we are and what we have to serve those who have been marginalized, is it simply an aspirational pledge? We aspire to do those things? It should be at least that. But if we aren't doing that in practice, then how will anyone know that we mean it? Is our allegiance really there? There's a reason why we pledge that every time we gather. It's important for us to remind ourselves that this is who we say we are, so that we will act that way, so people will say, yes, that is how you are. And I believe that we do. And I believe that we make the effort. And I believe there's always more to do. And that's why we gather each week, to be encouraged to do more. Because the gifts of God are not just bestowed upon us by some magical blessing so that we can be like the people in the story today, lying under maple trees drinking maple syrup. Now that would be a nice life, wouldn't it? Maybe that's what we should be praying for. That God fixes that problem with the maple trees and makes the syrup flow instead of that sap that you have to boil down. But the point of that indigenous story is true for us as well. That the gifts of creation, the gifts of God, the gifts of community are all given to us for us to do something with. That there's a part of this that involves our ritual and responsibility. Our practices. That's what makes the gifts truly good. We use them. The stories themselves, if we get caught up in the stories as literal and don't make meaning from them, we're not doing the work that we're supposed to do with the gift that we're given. The work is to make meaning. And when you have meaning in your life, when you understand the message that's been given to you, then you understand that challenge, because loving your neighbor is a challenge. And loving your neighbor is a challenge that is not limited. Another bit of the wisdom of indigenous peoples is that when they make decisions, they consider the implications to the seventh generation. One of your neighbors is the seventh generation that has not yet been born. You must love that one as well. So our vision needs to be longer and wider and broader. Our passion needs to be expansive. The lesson is right there in the maple trees. Not only is the work of making syrup hard because it takes time and effort and doesn't happen immediately, and the product, as wonderful as it is small, which makes it more valuable. But also, if you plant a maple tree today, you are not going to have syrup next season, or the season after, or the season after. The gift of a maple tree planted today is a gift to the seventh generation. It is loving your neighbor who you cannot see, and you may not ever see. That's truly the love that we're called to. That's truly the allegiance that is primary for us, to the creation, and most especially to the Creator. Amen. Thank you for staying with us on this journey. I hope you found something to cheer about. You could cheer for us with a like for this video. A share would be nice too. Maybe even a subscription to our channel. All these things are very helpful. They show your support for us. And if that support extends to financial, we would very much appreciate your financial gift. Visit our website, and we will use that money to further this ministry so that we might live out our pledge to use who we are and what we have to serve those on the margins. We hope that in your time with us, you've received something that you can chew on, some grist for the mill, as it were, so that you might find what you need to go out into this world and live the life that God has placed before you. We wish you well with that. Blessings on that journey. Until we see each other again, be well.
Mercy, mercy me. Things ain't what they used to be, no, no. Where did all the blue skies go? Poison is the wind that blows from the north, south, and east. Mercy, mercy me. Oh, things ain't what they used to be, no, no. Oil wasted on the ocean and upon our seas, fish full of mercury. Mercy, mercy me. Things ain't what they used to be, no, no. Radiation underground and in the sky. Animals and birds who live nearby are dying. Mercy, mercy me. Things ain't what they used to be, no, no. What about this overcrowded land? How much more abuse from man can she stand? Oops.